All right, let's dive in. Thank you again for coming to Giraffe 102. Today's topic is prospecting and market tracking. We're going to be taking a look at how to find land sites that meet your development criteria. Today, we're specifically going to take a look at a data center use case and try to find land sites that might be suitable for building data centers. The webinar is being recorded, and if you want to watch it back or share it with a colleague after, we'll upload it to our YouTube channel. And while the presentation is going, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the meeting chat. I'll try to get to them as I go. If I do miss anything, I will be able to circle back to it at the end of the presentation. And we'll also have some time at the end for open questions. So if you want to raise your hand and ask a question live, we'll have time for that at the end. So with that, let's get going here. In case you haven't met me yet, I am Holly Conrad Smith. I am one of our customer success managers here at Giraffe, and I'm really excited to take you through this process today. So starting with a view of my entire country here, you'll probably see, first of all, in case you haven't checked out the home screen yet in Giraffe, this is a really great place to start. So you're probably used to logging in and maybe going to the project view. And in project view, of course, down at the bottom, you have drawing tools, you have your sort of analytics and reports off to the right-hand side. And that project view is really meant to be zoomed in on a specific project. Maybe it's a precinct or maybe it's a specific plot of land that you're designing some options on. When you're looking at all of your projects across your entire portfolio, it's a little bit easier to be able to zoom out and see everything in context. So that's the point of your home screen. And we're going to be spending a lot of time in home today to do our workflows for prospecting. You get to home either if you just go to app.giraffe.build and log in, it should take you straight to your home screen. But if you want to get to home from a project screen, you can just click your workspace logo here in the top left, and that will take you to your favorite home. Here I am going to actually start a brand new home from scratch. So this is a really cool thing that you can do. So you can just keep sort of the default one where Giraffe will show you everything in your portfolio. Or you can kind of narrow it down to a specific market area. So if you're working on a lot of different markets, sometimes it's really good to have a sort of different zoomed in home area for each of those markets. For instance, I have one set up for Dallas, I have one for Alexandria, Virginia, and I also have one for New South Wales, Australia. And then today I'm going to make a new one for Phoenix. It's really easy to create a new home screen, and we'll go through that in a second. What you want to do when you're looking for land sites, of course, and this might be very basic, but you want to define your strategy before you start searching. Give yourself some criteria that is going to help you narrow down your search to something that meets those criteria. And those criteria are usually set by a combination of zoning codes, local area environmental factors, infrastructure availability, points of interest. All of those things working together can determine whether a particular plot of land is more interesting than another one. And for that reason, we're going to take a look at all of those things sort of together today, across multiple land sites to see which ones might work. Pretending today that we are a data center developer, we're going to be really focused on that infrastructure availability. Of course, for developing data centers, you need access to that substation power, you need access to water, you need to make sure that, that the site is large enough to house, multiple warehouses, and it needs to be pretty stable environmentally. You don't want data centers flooding often, for instance. So all of those things together have sort of made Phoenix a popular place for data center development, which is why we're going to focus in Phoenix today. In your home space, it's really easy to search for a general location. Your map search is this big search bar in the top left, and I can just type a city that I'm interested in and select it there. And I can then zoom into that location on my map. And as I zoom in, I'm going to start seeing, more and more information generate on the map based on what's visible in my sort of map area. The first thing I'm going to do now that we're here, I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit because I want to make this sort of a large area. I'm going to save this home space as my Phoenix prospecting home. So the first thing I need to do is sort of set my area of interest. And I'm going to do that by clicking Open Menu, Spaces, and then Edit Space Location. And I'm just going to draw a big old rectangle. Doesn't have to be super specific. It's really just to set your sort of general map area of interest. And then once I've done that, I can save this as a space. And I'm going to call this Phoenix Prospecting. I'm going to spell it correctly. And then I can give it a little description. And I'm going to write in here that I am searching for data center sites. And then I'll just click Create Space. And here I can invite my colleagues to join this space with me. So if I have another teammate who's also looking for land sites in the same area, it can be really beneficial for both of you to be working in the same place. That means, it's not like Tom has seen something and he has it on his spreadsheet, and then Jane has also seen the exact same site, but she's tracking it on a completely different spreadsheet, so no one knows that the work is being double done. I'm sure everyone's run into that before. This way, if you save everything that you're looking at in Giraffe, whether you decide you're interested in it or not, in the future, someone can go and see instantly, oh, someone's already looked at this. They've recorded all of their notes on it. I'm not going to waste my time looking at this site again. So definitely a really good workflow to share that information with your team. So I'm just going to load in here. And we'll see once I'm loaded in that I don't have any projects in this area. And that's just because I haven't done very much in Phoenix yet. It's a new market for me. And as we sort of work through the training here today, we'll see more and more information populate on my map. So I'm going to just close Project Gallery for now. We can look at that later. So now that I have my sort of map area defined, I also want to get myself set up for success before I even start looking at data, before I even start looking at parcels and filtering and seeing what things might meet my criteria. I want to define some important criteria that I want to track on every single project that I create in Giraffe. This is something that is extremely powerful for managing your portfolio of projects, and it really helps keep you organized and helps you track all of that information. So before I even start creating projects, I'm going to jump into my administration section of Giraffe and click on Settings. And in Settings, you can create all kinds of fields that will be saved on every single project. And those fields allow you to fill out specific information about that project that is valuable to your organization. All of these properties are completely customizable to you. Giraffe ships to you with actually no predefined workspace properties. So you can go in there and start defining everything that you typically track on your project sites. So we've got things like what market is it, what's the status of that site, what product type are we planning to build, just a general notes. And then what I'm interested in adding to today is my proximities here. So, didn't mean to drag that, sorry. So the proximities are sort of yes, no, whether that site is close to different types of points of interest that would make it better or worse for doing certain types of development. So you can see we've got some for residential setup, whether it's in, a transit-oriented development area, whether it's in a HUD opportunity area, is it city-owned land, does it have good points of interest, blah, 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 blah. But for us doing data centers, what we really want to know is how far is it from the substation? Is there water available, and is there good power available? So, those are very basic, obviously, and we'll have to do more research, but being able to check off those boxes as you go really quickly to start can be really helpful. So I'm actually going to create a new property here. And that property is going to be a toggle because I'm just going to have it toggle yes, no. And I'm going to name this one water available and just save it. And it's as simple as that. It's a very, very simple property. It comes in at the top of my list, and I'm just going to move it into my proximities group. And then I'll create another new property. And this one I want to be a number. And this one I'm going to call distance to nearest substation. And I'm going to put in miles as my reference point here. And it's as easy as that. I'm just going to save this, and we'll see how it looks more once we start saving projects. But those are the two things that I'm going to want to track really closely as I'm looking for data center sites. So now I can just pop back into my Giraffe space here that I've created. And now that I have that sort of data management set up for my projects, what I want to start looking at is the contextual information on the map that's going to give me the answers to those questions I've been asking. And the way you add context to the map is by adding data layers. And these data layers are spatial information. Most of them are from open data sources, but you might also be loading in data from your local municipality, or you may have even purchased data that it can be very helpful, and you can load that into Giraffe as well. We actually ran a training recently on everything about data layers, and you can watch those on our YouTube channel if you're interested in how to upload spatial data to Giraffe. Today, I'm just going to add layers that I already have in my library. And actually, every layer that I'm going to add today, except for the regrid parcel layer, is completely open, available to anyone who's using Giraffe. So you can add it to your projects or your prospecting home as well. So the first thing I'm going to add is some environmental information. And my personal favorites are the USGS, the 3D contours. So this is from the United States, from the US government. They do 3-foot contours for the entire United States. Super detailed. It's really good information to know if your plot has a lot of slope on it. The other thing that I want to add here, which might seem strange since we're in the middle of the desert, but it's flood. And it's because when it does rain in Phoenix, there are major flood areas that I want to make sure I'm avoiding if I am building something in a site that might have that flood overlay. So I can add my FEMA flood hazard zones, but there's also, I may not have been the Phoenix ones. Phoenix. Yeah, I think it was a different. I'm just going to use the FEMA ones here. So I've added my FEMA flood and my USGS contours, and I'll just close out of the layer library there, and we'll see those pop into my map here, and those will start loading up, and we'll start to see those contours appear on the map. I'm going to group these two layers together by just dragging one on top of the other and call this environmental. And the reason for that is I don't need all of the data at all times, and I want to be able to easily toggle between different types of data as I'm searching. So I've made this group, so now I can just turn off both the contours and the flood at the same time. It just makes it easier to manage my group of layers here. And then the other set of layers that I want to add is the open infrastructure maps. So if you just type infrastructure into the search, maybe I'll type open infrastructure. Here we go. I'll just scroll down here. So all of these open infrastructure map layers are actually global, and they're super detailed, and it's really, really good information. So I'm going to add the ones that are relevant to this project, which are going to be power lines, maybe my power plants, my substation locations, and my water pipelines. So these are the ones that I really want to know about. And I will again just close out of that layer library, and those will all get added in here. There we go. And those will all start loading up as well. So you can see immediately once these load up that I'm getting points for my power substations. I'm getting the location of all of my power lines and water pipelines. And I can group these together as well. And I'll just add all of these to the group too. So I can do the same thing I did with the environmental and just toggle those all off for now. We'll take a deeper look at that in a moment. So I have my contextual information set up that is important for this project. I have my environmental, I have my infrastructure. The last thing I need is my parcel boundaries, right? So today I'm going to use the regrid data set, and regrid is, excuse me, regrid is a national parcel aggregator for the United States, and they've also got some data in Canada as well. In the United States, it's almost 100% coverage, and they have they're normalizing and aggregating together parcel outlines, tax assessor data, and zoning from another company called Zonomics. And what that means is you can search normalized keywords across the entire United States. And if you are working in multiple markets, that is extremely helpful. So I love using the regrid data set to demo on. It is an upgrade for your account. So if you're interested in adding that on, just reach out to James and he can help you out. But today we will just zoom in here so that my regrid parcels can load up, and then we will get started with searching. So you're starting to see, of course, all of these parcels are generating on the map. Right now they're being colored by, I believe, zoning type. So you can see sort of generally whether they are residential or commercial or industrial as we are looking for today. Most likely, we're not going to find industrial land sites downtown in the center of the city, right? So we're going to need to scroll out a little bit, go past all of the areas where the residential is. And I'm going to try to load up a few parcels here, just so that we can open up our map. There we go. All right. So all of these parcels have information saved on them. If I right click on one of these parcels and open back up my side here and mouse over the name of the parcel, on the right hand side here, I'm going to see all of the information that is saved on that specific parcel. So I have the address, I have the zoning code, I have a link to the zoning description. And there's over 150 fields from Regrid that tell you probably everything you could possibly want to know about every parcel that they have in their data set. And being able to right click on it and just look at that one parcel's information is super helpful if you know exactly what you're looking for and you just click on it and you're good to go. But if I'm looking for sort of parcels in general and I want to search, it's a little bit easier to do that in a table format. So I'm going to look at this Regrid data set on a table by clicking the three dots here, clicking Open Lens, and letting that data load up here. It is always my internet. I might have to turn my video off. There we go. Perfect. So we can see now that I have all of these parcels also listed in this table. And each one of these line items here coordinates to a parcel on the map. So as I mouse over or select parcels here, you can see them also highlighting on the map. I will zoom in even closer so maybe you can see those. So you can see as I mouse over, they're highlighting on the map. I can select multiple parcels at once and see their data in more detail. And this is sort of the process of designating what parcels might be interesting in my search. However, we know today we're not interested in looking at residential. So let's, before we start clicking on things and wasting our time looking at stuff that doesn't meet our needs, we can actually filter everything in this data set to the criteria that we need. So the first thing I'm going to do is just click Add Filter right here. And it's going to give me a list of all of the filterable fields on that data set. For Regrid, like I said, there's like 150 fields that you can search and filter on. And the first one I'm going to do is zoning type. And you can see here that we have this zoning type column. And that zoning type column is normalized across the entire United States. So it makes it really easy, whereas, you know, of course, zoning code is different in every single municipality. It's crazy if you're not familiar with that local area to figure out exactly what you're trying to do. So these normalized fields make it really easy to sort of home in on exactly what you're looking for without having to be totally familiar with the local zoning code yet. So I'm going to filter by zoning type is industrial. And it instantly filters the map to meet that requirement. And if I mouse over here a little bit, we'll start to see that those light blue ones seem to be what's zoned industrial. And we will get some information starting to show up here as it loads. There we go. So now we've got all of our zoning type is industrial. And then I can also filter further by zoning subtype if I wish. So we've got zoning, we've got industrial, and there's also, I saw light industrial, but maybe when I moved the map, those disappeared from the list here. But what I actually want to filter for as my second one is the size of the parcel. I know I need a pretty large area to build the type of building that makes sense for a data center. So I'm going to search for my regrid parcel calculated parcel acreage. And this one, I want anything that's greater than, maybe greater than, let's see what we get when we search for 4 acres. Might be too big. Let's do 3. Of course, if you had a specific, criteria that you're looking for, if you see that this area, everything is too small, then you got to sort of start looking elsewhere. But for the purpose of today's demo, I'm going to try to find something that is in my local map area that kind of meets that criteria. Oh, I need is greater than. That might be part of the problem. So right now it's looking for anything that's exactly 2, which probably nothing is exactly 2 acres. That would be very particular. So let's do is greater than, let's see what we get if we do greater than 3. Perfect. Okay. So now I'm seeing everything where the zoning type is industrial and the calculated parcel acreage is greater than 3. And I can see that I've actually got a lot of options here in this particular area. So now that I've sort of narrowed down my search to like a little zoning neighborhood and some parcels that are zoned correctly and are the correct size, now is the time that I might want to bring in that contextual data that I was looking at before. So I am going to turn on my environmental data here to just see if any of these parcels have some crazy, contours on them. Because obviously a site that is already mostly flat is going to be much easier to develop than a site that is not. So looking at some of these sites, it looks like we have some minor grading going on. These are the difference between each line is 3 feet. So you can see it's not too crazy on some of them, but some of them might be, a little too much going on. Like this one has this berm in the middle of it. So maybe I want to avoid that one. And it looks like this area also has perhaps some flood overlay area. This orange that's loading in is probably my my flood zone. If I click on that, whoops, I want to click on the, no, it's still loading. The little error icons next to the layer tells you that there are some tiles in that layer that haven't loaded yet. So you can just let it continue to go and then it will completely load up as you wait. All of my issues with screen sharing in Zoom is mostly due to my computer's video card. I prioritized transportability of my computer over being super, super high performance. So there you go. But yeah, as I sort of mouse around here, I'm starting to see some of these might be in a little bit of a flood overlay area. This orange and blue is loading up. Might want to avoid those ones, So it's really easy to tell which parcels might be useful to me and which ones might not be so much. Like this one has this big zone A right on top of it. That's a no-go immediately, right? So pretty cool stuff with being able to see it that way. And then the other thing that we can look at, of course, is our infrastructure overlay. So I'm going to open up my infrastructure here. And just like the regrid layer, I can actually look at the data table for all of these layers as well. So if I wanted to filter for only specific voltages, for instance, or I wanted to recolor or restyle some of these to give me some particular information, I could do that. So let me style this one up, and I want to make my substations really obvious. So I'm going to make them really big. There we go. And I have colored it by voltage. And I'm going to make it red so that they stand out a bit better. So I can see there's a substation here. So that means that this little area is going to be more interesting to me than other areas because there is a power substation in that area. It's only 69 voltage though. I think that 230 is more desirable for data centers. So maybe this one. Let's look. So we've got a few things along here that might potentially work. For the purpose of today, I'm kind of ignoring if there's something built there already, but you would probably also want to be looking for more undeveloped sites. But let's just say, okay, I've looked. I think, the things that are close to the substation are interesting. I want something that has not a direct flood overlay, and I want something that is relatively flat. And from what I'm seeing is, these kinds of things here might be interesting to me. And there's a little bit of flood overlay there. We'll watch out for it. But I will just put my focus of my data table back on the regrid layer. And now I'm going to just bulk select all of the parcels that might be interesting to me. Just by holding down shift, I'm just going to shift and click on all of these parcels. And that looks like a good set to start with. Maybe I'll add this one too. It's a crazy shaped one. And with all of these selected, I can see them selected on the map and selected in the table. I can create one project for each parcel boundary by clicking on these double arrows here. See how it says, excuse me, create multiple projects from selection. That's what I'm going to do. And what it does is it takes each of those parcel boundaries that I selected and turns it into a potential project. And I can sort of edit those project names if I wish. I'm just going to leave it as the default, which is basically the address. And then I can come down here and fill out all of the information for all of these in one go. So I didn't update my market, of course. I should have added Phoenix here. I'll add that later. I can put in my status. I'm going to say it's a tracking status. I am the owner. I'll say the client is Acme Data Centers. The product type is industrial data center. And then I can fill out my proximities. So is there water available? I actually didn't check that. But there is no flood coverage. There's no wetlands coverage. There's no steep slope. So I don't have to turn those on. And my data center distance is, pretty close, like half a mile. Not too bad. So I'm going to put in my distance as 0.5. I maybe accidentally set the minimum to be 1 there. I can go back and edit that. But now that I have all of this information saved, when I click Save Projects, it's going to instantly add all of those projects to my portfolio. So I'll just click save, give it a second to process through all of those. Perfect. And then here I can sort of share each project one by one. I'm not interested in doing that because I can bulk share them later. So I'm just going to close out of that. And you can see now on my map that all of these projects have been added to my layer of projects here, and they are mapped now on the screen. I'm going to turn off the table on regrid, close lens. And now I can zoom in here and sort of see each of these projects in more detail on their own. So if I click on 603 North 20th Ave, it's going to pull up that project's information here on the right-hand side. And I can actually now edit this project individually from here without even having to go into it. So I can say, oops, actually this one does have flood overlay, so I'm going to save that. And does any other one have flood overlay? I don't think so. And then I can double check, like I said before, go back and double check if there's water availability, et cetera, et cetera. So I've got all of these projects now, and perhaps I went through and did some more detailed digging on each of these, and found out that a couple of them were more feasible than others based on criteria. So maybe I really dug into the zoning code on 917 North 25th and 1325 North 21st. So these two I've decided are the most interesting to me. I'm going to open up my table on my projects now. And select these two. And I can select them just like I did with the parcel layer by just holding down Shift and selecting multiple. So now I've got these two selected. And I've decided I want to take these ones to the next step. So I am going to share them with my teammate. And I can bulk share as many projects as I can select with my teammate. And perhaps James is our feasibility guy. He's going to go in there and actually start to try to draw up something and see if it fits. So I can give him edit access, invite him to the projects, and I'm going to share the entire workspace and those projects together. And then James will, the next time he logs in, be able to access those projects as well. So the last thing I want to do here is actually update the project status on these from tracking to concept. I'll just do that really quick. Save. And now as I am looking at my portfolio of projects, if I want to see really quickly what status each thing is in, I'm going to just color my labels by the status of the project. Status. Did that change? Okay. Save. I may be recoloring the wrong thing. Labels. Oh, I have it on. Let's take it off fill. Or let's put it on circle. And I'll color this circle by the status. And the circle will put a center dot on each project. Let's see if I turn off the label. Nope. I think this is my internet again. But you can style up these, your projects on a layer, just like you can style up the other things on a layer, like we looked at styling the substations. So that is basically your step-by-step. You define a market strategy, you create a home space that will contain everything for that market strategy. And then you define fields for your project to track the criteria that's important. You add the contextual data to your home space that you can use to search, especially the parcel layer. Excuse me, just getting over a cold here. And then once you add all that information, you can use it together to filter and find parcels that meet your criteria. So I hope that was really helpful for you. I hope this kind of inspires you to take a look at using Giraffe for finding potential land sites. And if anyone has any questions, I can hang out for a little bit and you can ask your question live if you wish. But I'll stop the recording here. So thanks everyone for joining us today. And if you have any follow-up questions later on, feel free to email me directly at holly@giraffe.build. Thanks. Have a great afternoon.